One theme in what you're asking about is what I've called the quiet shift. There are things like sort of tectonic shifts that have moved very, very quietly that change things underneath us, like expectations. When you talk about cohesion with teams, one thing you need to be really explicit about, sort of if you're talking about tips, really be explicit about expectations. If you, let's say, especially as a team lead, say, hey, we've got this cool tool. It's going to help you. Be very explicit about the fact that you don't expect them to do twice as much work. Or if you do expect that, you better say that up front. Here, this is going to cut your production time in half. We're now going to be able to do twice as much work, because then your team can immediately raise their hand and say, I don't think that's the right way to look at this. So be very explicit about expectations when you're talking about tooling, and that's really going to tremendously affect the team.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Team Lab. In this new episode, we are joined by Yadin Porter De León, an award-winning marketing leader, storyteller, and community builder who currently leads global customer marketing and content strategy at Salesforce. Over a 15-year career in enterprise tech, Yadin has helped brands shift from vendor to trusted partner. And if you are in a role as a consultant or as a sales advisor or an account executive, you might want to listen to this episode. In his work at the intersection of AI adoption, team culture, and executive leadership, earned Yadin a Webby Award for Best Technology Podcast. Yadin knows how to tell stories. What makes Yadin's voice so powerful, especially in this AI moment, is that he's lived it. Not just the strategy decks, but the messy human side of transformation. In this conversation, he takes us behind the scenes of launching one of the first internal AI consoles, building frameworks for trust, and figure out what real enablement looks like for teams suddenly handed generative AI and told to go faster. And what he says would land with every leader who's sat in a room wondering, how do I lead my team through this? And here's what Yadin says about AI adoption. This thing called AI, it's so much extra work. In this episode, you're really in for maybe not the classical common way of thinking about AI in the workplace, which aligns very much with the disruptor of the workplace we're focusing on in this season. And it's not just because the technology doesn't work, but it's because the teams were not ready for what that technology demands. New guardrails, new codes of conduct, new shared language, new trust, and underneath of all of that, uncertainty at high speed. As Yadin puts it, the most disruptive element of this moment isn't technology, isn't the tool. The most disruptive element is the uncertainty that the technology introduces into the systems, into the leadership decisions and the team dynamics. When leaders feel pressure from above, when teams don't fully understand the technology, when no one knows what 2030 really looks like, it's not about tech conversation. It's really about a conversation of the system and the impact of this technology on the whole system. It's a cultural conversation, a leadership under pressure and uncertainty conversation. And today in this episode, we explore what it actually takes to guide teams through the kind of disruption without losing trust, clarity, or each other. And now, without further ado, here is Yadin Porter De León.
Welcome, Yadin.
Fabulous. Corey, Angela, you have no idea how excited I am to be on this show. I was listening to your show while I was on a plane flying back from Atlanta, and I was like, there's some really cool things in here. People are talking about all this stuff and tools and AI stuff, and it's like, well, what about the human? Where's that?
Mhm.
Where's your team? Where's your culture? What's, because all this stuff, everything you have is all in service of that. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Corey, Angela, it's great talking
Honored.
to you.
Honored
For
to
you
have
to
you.
have you. We didn't even pay for that, It's like, that's awesome.
I will be
Part
expecting
of
a
me was
deposit.
like, keep it going,
Yeah.
keep it going.
I
We're
will
already
be expecting.
delivering, Yadin. Thank you.
That's right.
I love it. Well, Yadin, you and I have worked together in the marketing world.
So we have.
You are still in the marketing world, and
I am. I fell into marketing somewhere on the
somewhere
journey.
along the way. And so
yes.
you are also the fabulous co-host of the AI Edge for enterprise marketing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. See, Corey, that's wonderful. I already get a shout out right at the beginning of the show. So yes, the AI Edge podcast
here.
for enterprise marketers. Because there's a lot. I feel like a lot of conversations to be had there. So I'm having a blast on that show. And I'm happy to be on this show now.
Great. And we really wanted to bring you in to talk to our listeners because, number one, it'll be really helpful to zoom in on maybe one area of the business. We talk about teams across all industries and whether you're engineering, HR, operations. But I think zooming in on the conversation of how does it impact these teams personally, AI adoption, right? Everyone's going through this evolution right now at work.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to get a really close lens on one specific area. And you have such a good insight. You're sitting at the intersection of the enterprise AI transformation in my mind.
Madness. Anyway. Yeah. So I'm right there against like the retaining wall and the wave that is crashing against it.
Right.
The unstoppable force and the immovable object. What's going to happen next?
Right. And we recently talked to Matt Tabor, who gave us some predictions in 5 years what AI is going to be happening, which is fantastic. That's episode 1. If you haven't,
I would love to hear it. So I love that Matt knows exactly what's happening in 5 years. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So we've got the predictions out front and kind of the impact and what teams can do now. And so this conversation is going to be really interesting to have you shed some light on the nuts and bolts of what people are doing, what's happening with culture. And I think maybe being so deeply involved in marketing and bringing AI to these teams, not just marketing, but also pulling the other teams in. Let's start with what your thoughts on what leaders often misunderstand about how AI will impact their teams and culture.
I think that's a good place to start. And so I would replace the word leader with human. We're all just people, basically just trying to get through our day and make it to our kids' soccer game on the weekend, and hopefully, get our laundry done somewhere along the way. And so just a little bit of background on me. Why should your listeners be listening to me? Started one of the first marketing ad councils in tech, which was right after the ChatGPT moment. We didn't think we were first. We thought we were kind of behind because there was all the other big companies and they must have it together. And then we started going to conferences and realizing everyone was asking us questions, like the biggest companies on the planet were like, "Oh, how are you guys doing it? We haven't done that yet." And so we found ourselves at that weird intersection. And then now I'm in the marketing team at Salesforce, which is all about, this agentic thing. So we're in this sort of crazy supersonic plane going at 1 billion miles a second. And so just bear with me for the context. And we're trying to stick our head out the window of a supersonic plane to see, looking over, say, are we in the right place? And then, trying to fix our instrumentation on the front. So hopefully that instrumentation will tell us where we are. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And so when we kind of talk about what humans or leaders, potentially maybe misunderstand, I think it starts foundationally, just like with anything, like, "Oh, let's go to the cloud," or, "Oh my goodness, look at, ML," or, "Hey, big data, this will fix all these different things." And it's tough because everybody's moving really fast. And like I said, everyone's just trying to get to their soccer game, get their laundry done. And you're trying to figure out what's best for your company because you have a fiduciary duty, whether it's public, private, you're an agent of the company and you're trying to get the company where it needs to go, and bring your team along with you. So especially if you're spread thin, you don't have a lot of time. And this goes for not just leaders, but oh my goodness, anyone who's just trying to get their job done. They're trying to hit their quarter. If you're in sales, you're trying to get that white paper out the door. You're trying to build that website. You're trying to get the campaign out. All those different things are weighing on you. And this thing called AI, and I experience this intensely, is so much extra work. Everything we did as a marketing AI council, it was not our jobs at all. We had full-time jobs. We had crazy lives. And somehow, scrappy as we were, we created guardrails. We created codes of conduct. We created enablement. frameworks to be able to help people who wanted to be able to understand what this crazy technology is. So two things. One is, what's that big misunderstanding, that I kind of just talked about? One is that, okay, I'm just going to level set with everybody. Most people don't know what AI actually is. AI usually is like that thing that we haven't quite done yet. But now we feel like, oh, AI is here. It's doing these things. It's writing blogs for us. We're doing strategy sessions. Really understanding that AI is what a lot of people talk about. Large learning models are word prediction machines. Mm-hmm. You train it on a bunch of data and it predicts the next word. It's a non-deterministic, here I'm going to start using crazy words now. It's a non-deterministic system, and people are now selling it as a deterministic product. Like, hey, look, it can create a virtual BDR for you. Hey, it can answer all of your customer questions, or it can completely make up stuff for your customer questions, because it's not a deterministic system. You now have to take all your backend, databases, put a bunch of guardrails on it, and then try and squeeze it so it doesn't do the crazy thing that it was literally designed to do. It was designed to hallucinate. It was literally designed to be creative, and people are now applying it to all these things where creativity is really not welcome. I want you to do the same thing every single time, and it just doesn't. And one of my favorite examples is, my wife actually was talking to this chatbot, and her and I love to just mess with, AI automated chatbots. And she basically said, she eventually got it to tell her that, she could get something for free if she bought this one other product. And then so she then emailed the company and said, hey, look this chatbot said I could get this for free. And they're like, I'm so sorry, that is not free. Isn't it it's totally crazy. And I love, what some people call red teaming. I do light red teaming. I just basically get it to do what it's really not supposed to do. And it's almost guaranteed I can pretty much get any LLM to do something it's not supposed to do. So that is, I'm setting the conversation up for just the fact that foundationally, the large learning model is not designed to do most of the things that people expect it to do. What it has done is it's inspired companies to create the automation that should have already existed that we needed. So I'm going to get off my soapbox for a second right now and get your guys' thoughts on that, and then we can maybe kick the conversation off.
So there's something that I hear in there. Are you saying that the humans are actually limiting AI?
It's an interesting perspective. The humans, if they want it to do the same thing every single time, the guardrails and restrictions that are put on it, yes, have to be there so that you have to squeeze it down enough so that it doesn't go crazy, because it wasn't designed to do the same thing every time. So the thing is, it's instead of going and trying and limiting this wonderful, beautiful technology created on the transformer architecture white paper that Google dropped in 2017, all of this is based on that. Throw more data at it, throw more compute at it, and it'll be able to do crazier, harder problems based on all these different parameters. So, but what we should use it for is this amazing, brilliant, creative source that it could be. That, yes, put a bunch of data and then have it solve something in a novel way, like scientific research, creating, different solutions from a strategic level for your business. Have it be creative that way. Don't have it try and manage your database and give customers exact answers. Use it as a user interface. If you're going to talk to your data, have that just be the verbal interface, and then have your machine learning, your database, all the other tooling be the same as it is in the back end. But that interface is what the AI is. And that is beautiful. And so that I've found, many companies have just created some just absolutely novel and beautiful verbal interfaces that you can just chat with, have it analyze your dreams, just talk about your day. And then that is the interface that then could allow you to query your backend data and do all this crazy stuff. But people say the AI is doing it. The AI is not doing that. The AI is interfacing with the human. And that's the whole idea, is that they were trying to create an interface. So going back to the human part, if you can create a nice, wonderful human natural language interface with the information that is your differentiator in your business, that's making you giving your strategic advantage, that is a wonderful, powerful tool. And I think that's what you really need to be looking at, is how do you take the information that someone needs and create an interface for it that is beautiful and elegant and human, that makes you feel like you're having a wonderful experience, talking with, it's not a human, but it's a human-like experience. That is something that many companies are going for, that's embedded, I think, in the agentic, effort. but it has to be looked at through that lens. Looking at it through, I'm going to replace 10 workers on my team with this tool. That's really not a good way to do it. So going back to your original question, what are people getting wrong? That's really the wrong way to look at it. Though many companies are trying to sell that. It is a super pack, like a jet pack for the people who already know how to do their job really well, who know the systems, who are creative, who are curious, who are ambitious. Those individuals need more resources, not more work, not more demands to do things faster. They need the tools like, various AI tools that are very, very helpful. And they, yes, will be more efficient. But as I've had conversations with many individuals, really the expectation should be quality. So instead of spending 80% of your time trying to get like a deck or a white paper or a strategy framework.
You use it as a tool, right?
You get the foundation done, that foundational work done, and then you're worried about that last 20%. That's really creative, that really gets it to something that's better than it would have been if you had to spend all that time doing it.
Okay, I have questions for you. All right. So here's the things that I saw in there as you were speaking, that ultimately the elements of how to relate, even if we're talking about LLMs and AI, there still stands. I need to learn more about you. I need to find resonance with you, right? When I am in relation with something else, somebody else.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like in there, the way that you were speaking about it, of disengagement with the technology, the human aspect of how we know how to relate, they're still there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
it's actually the core, the critical core of
the critical
that we do.
core. Okay. And so I would like for you, because it's the theme in these conversations of projecting in the future. And it's like, we're not that far out. So we're not, that because nobody knows, but it's 2030. So just 5 years, 5 years. Let's look at those workplaces, how we will be in relationship with the technology, with those machines or agents, whatever. Take us there. How do you see it?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I think it is a fun exercise, and I'll do this with the caveat that if anyone tells you that they absolutely know what's going to happen in the next 5 years, that they're
lying.
I don't know what nobody knows.
They're trying to sell you something.
Sam Altman, Buddha, nobody knows, what's happening in 5 years.
Agreed.
But it is a fun exercise. And there's this one guy, his name's Jeffrey. I wish I remember his last name. He's a wonderful company that he goes and he does this exercise with Fortune 500 companies. And I got to do a session with him, which was super fun. It was a treat, where he said, okay, we're really, really good at predicting the super future. Like, hey, this is going to happen eventually, 20 years, 30 years. By then, somewhere in there, we're really good at that. But we're terrible at that 5 to 10 year, or like and we're really good at like the close, okay, in the next 4 quarters. Okay, we pretty much know solidly what's going to happen, which in many cases in large companies is not a whole lot. 4 quarters, be lucky if you get, stuff closer to the goalpost. But that middle part, we're terrible at. And so do something like, look at that super future. Like, hey, look at, in the super future, I'll have, let's say, agents that are reporting to me in the org chart. Okay. And they're going to be like that, where I'll be able to have a call, kind of like, we're connecting right now, and I'll be able to get on with, with Joe or Miles or Susan or whatever, or, B3 dash, whatever we call them, and be able to say, hey, look at these 2 inputs. I need to be able to create a slide deck that has the best of these 3 assets. And I needed to be in this new template. It's an old template. And I also there's these 3 emails as well, where people just sort of ranted about things that need to be updated. Grab all those resources, and then boom, come back. And then I need to be able to talk through it. Because one thing is, and this is sort of another context to this, like what's happening in 2030, is people talk about all the stuff that can be created, but all you're doing is creating more backlog. People still have to review it. They have to look at it. They have to read it. But one thing that people love about, let's say, vendors or agencies or consultants, that people walk them. They talk them through the data. They talk them through the workflow. And if you had the agent that was really able to do the same thing that, an agency was, and talk you through this infographic, talk you through this website rebuild, then that reduces the friction from you going to the next step and reviewing that asset, commenting on that asset, giving feedback, and then that asset being revised. So if that agent, let's say like, in this super future that reports to me, can walk me through it, then instantaneously now I have something that actually helps me be more efficient. Because everything else, like I can go into like we were just talking about before we started recording, I can go to Google Notebook LM and, just this dates the episode a little bit, or they just dropped their slides feature where you can go to Notebook LM, take the sources, and then produce some slides. Fabulous. Immediately I got super excited about it. That immediately I created 6 of them and then realized, wait, now I have 6, 15, 20 page slide decks that I have to review every single page to make sure it's accurate, that it actually took it and didn't make stuff up. I'm like, whoa. But if there was an agent that could do that for me and I had to trust in the agent, trust is another thing that we'll get to, then I would actually have a tool that will allow me to do more. Because right now all I can do is create stuff. And now I need to find people
and
who
add
are
more work for yourself.
Exactly. Add more work for myself. So in the super future 2030, so somewhere between the super future and this 2030, which is 5 years from now, we're going to be somewhere along that trajectory. We're going to be somewhere walking back. And this is that consultant kind of did this exercise. What's that super future versus near future? Okay, walk back eventually that agent. So how close are we going to be in 5 years to having that agent? I think some pieces of those agents are going to be in place. The verbal interface, which I've already seen really great promise in, is going to be in place. And I feel like that verbal interface will be adopted by somebody who has distribution. And when I say distribution, I mean something like Google or Microsoft will have a good verbal interface. Because the stuff that I say that, ChatGPT has right now, they have the ability to create something better. They just haven't yet.
Yeah.
Why? There's a lot of speculation around that. Something that you can actually have a conversation like we are, interrupt each other, exchange ideas, and then be able to instantly access the information that we have in our brain. And then actually, God forbid, remember what we talked about later on in a session and actually get it right. That has been very elusive. But that interface is where you've got a lot of potential.
Yeah, but the foundation is there. Yeah.
Yeah, the foundation is there. So some of those pieces in 2030 are going to be there. I think the verbal interface is going to be there. I think memory is going to be something they're going to make a lot of progress with. Mm-hmm. And I think those are going to be packaged up in a couple different ways that are going to be really exciting and interesting for people. Is the agent going to be there? I don't think it's going to be ready by then. But like I said, don't trust anyone who says they absolutely know what's going to happen, because they don't. They could wow us and surprise us, and an agent could emerge that interfaces the way that we do, and that can actually go and reliably do stuff. You're still going to have the problem with trust, though. Trust is going to take longer than 5 years. So
okay,
that is for sure.
Before we get on the trust, because you said we're going to get back on the trust, and we're definitely going to go back on the trust. What kind of human needs to be there?
Yeah, the human.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the trust piece, the question of when we're going to be able to transition to that trusting of the agent is going to depend on that the human getting to the place of having the experience with a tool to a degree that they then are comfortable handing off certain final components of any deliverable to this tool. Like at a certain point, there was a transition, going the Wayback Machine, when you had something like Microsoft Word or Word Perfect, and it had a spell check, and lots of people didn't trust that it actually knew how to spell correctly. And they would double check the spell check because they're like, I don't know. It doesn't know I know how to spell. And it would double check. That is a very crude but very real example of what we're going through right now. It's like if you create a 15-page deck, I don't trust that Notebook LM has actually created it in a way that is going to be politically correct, that's going to be empathetic, that's actually accurate. That's really where you've got the human who needs to be at the core of creating this content. So it just accelerates the speed at which it's not really the best way to look at it. Saying, hey, I can write a blog in 15 seconds. I don't like looking at this. I like looking at it as this was a 4-week project because of all the stakeholders and gates and, creative interlocks and meetings we had to set up. That 4 weeks could be collapsed to 3 days because I can get a proof of concept out via one of these tools. That's how I really like to look at it. Because as humans, we delay stuff and kick the can down the road. And this thing that could be done in 3 days will take us 4 weeks because we've got to set a meeting and then we've got to set a follow-up meeting and get that stakeholder. Oh no, Joe is on vacation. Okay, when he comes back, we'll blah. All that stuff can be done away with when we have these kind of tools. So that's that piece. But the human element, it is so paramount. And I had three really tough conversations with agencies who were either currently servicing work that I'm doing or wanted to service work that I'm doing. And the most important part of those conversations were, I need someone who knows what good is. I need someone who knows what empathy is. I need someone who's curious. I need someone who knows what better is, not just good. And that is my expectation now under the current climate with these tools. I expect better. Because the heavy lift is no longer what I'm paying you for, because the heavy lift is now being taken care of by tools. You don't have to spell check anymore. We fixed that many, many years ago. So no one's going there. It's spell checking. That's not a thing. Now the same thing with, with these tools. You need people who not just, and this was actually, I had a good example of this too, not just are curious, not just know what good is or what better is, people that care. Because I did a bake-off with a couple different AI workflows for creating customer stories. And the reason I liked a certain vendor to do that is because that workflow, it didn't matter which one worked. What I cared about ultimately was that they were excited about creating the best possible quality that could be created. Not because I wasn't like, oh, cool, now I can pay you 20% less. No, that was not the conversation at all. It was, can we get the creative, this process 30, 40, 50% better, quality, whatever that means to you. Like the storytelling is better, how we're surfacing the way that the product or solution, creatively helped, the customer, why it was a differentiator. All those things can be uncovered in a way that would potentially be lost if we're just trying to get these out the door and the writer is just trying to get to the foundational components of it. And I want someone who cares and wants better. And then, because they'll be able to leverage those tools to be able to get there. So that's really putting the human front and center.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing, that basically the tasks that are the heavy lift are the thing that's going to be the expertise of the tools, while the humans can alongside provide some discernment, quality control, encouragement, critical thinking, but that there is still value on the human side in those roles.
Yes.
But maybe bringing us back to the present moment and some of the experiences that you've had working with agencies, working at Salesforce, working with other organizations. Can you talk a little bit about how, as the work becomes more digital, how people can keep motivated and cohesive as a team? Or have you seen any impact there where as these tasks start to get handed off, that maybe there's some gap in performance along the way because teams aren't keeping up with the momentum? Any practices that you've seen to keep the humans connected?
There's a few things in there. One theme in what you're asking about is what I've called the quiet shift. There are things like sort of tectonic shifts that have moved very, very quietly that have changed things underneath us, like expectations. When you talk about cohesion with teams, one thing you need to be really explicit about, sort of if you're talking about tips, really be explicit about expectations. If you, let's say, especially as a team lead, say, hey, we've got this cool tool, it's going to help you, be very explicit about the fact that you don't expect them to do twice as much work. Or if you do expect that, you better say that up front. Here, this is going to cut your production time in half. We're not going to be able to do twice as much work, because then your team can immediately raise their hand and say, I don't think that's the right way to look at this. So be very explicit about expectations when you talk about tooling, and that's really going to tremendously affect the team. It's going to affect the team's trust for you as a leader as well. Because I've been in countless interactions where, team leads, organizational regional leads, org leads, just say, we want to enable you. We want to make sure you have the latest tools, and here you go. But then there's this quiet unease. Cool. I'm a marketer, but I have Cursor. Cursor is for writing code. Am I an engineer now? Am I supposed to be building apps for marketing? And that can make some serious unease with individuals. So that is like a fundamental piece of, when you have somebody reporting to you, you need to make sure that you're building and maintaining that trust. You're creating a culture where individuals within your team have the correct type of expectation. So alignment is always key. These are themes that are just always the case. But the problem is that AI is disruptive, as you guys have said, because the pace is so quick, because the impact can be so dramatic, where someone could have a mismatch of expectations where, okay, you've got a tool now. Why isn't that blog already done? It's like, well, you just handed the assignment to me like 2 hours ago. Well, yeah, but you can write in 15 seconds, right? And we didn't need AI for that. I literally have talked to companies that like, we had this hackathon for blogs and they're writing a blog every day. I'm like, is that a good thing? Should you be writing a blog every single day? What are you writing it about?
What's the goal?
Yeah, exactly. What's it for?
What's the value added of having a daily?
Exactly. And so blog hackathon, yay. And it's the most junior person at your company and they're not engaging with any of your subject matter experts to create these blogs. So like, maybe you should pump the brakes on that a little bit. So it's really good to have this, this perspective, because whether you're a leader, a team, a culture, AI does kind of three things. I'm going to use a movie analogy for those of you who watch this. There's Bradley Cooper film called Limitless, where he takes this little pill and his brain explodes and he can think of everything, he can figure out anything. It's amazing. But in the movie, they say something really important. They say it only works well if you're already smart. Now, you don't have to be technically, quote unquote, smart when you're using AI, but you have to care. You have to be curious. You have to want to do better. Those are the qualities that are going to make your work really, really amazing. It amplifies whatever the work is. If you're trying to do great work, it's going to make it even better. If you are doing mediocre work, it's going to let you do mediocre work, without having to do anything, without having to lift a finger. And if you're just putting out slop, it accelerates the ability to create slop exponentially. I remember the first time I was talking to somebody who I was excited about, because I was all excited about the ChatGPT moment, and I'm in Las Vegas at this conference, and we're in this video room where I've got all the lights and camera and stuff, I'm shooting these videos, and the sound guy is like looking at this thing that I'm doing because I've got my laptop up and I'm getting a real-time feed of the audio, and it's turning it to text, and that's getting loaded into a large learning model that's creating a video edit like on the fly. Super fun, saving me lots of time. And he's like, how do you do that? I'm like, oh, it's this one tool. He's like, oh my God. He runs off, goes and gets a free trial for this. Comes back, is like, I just posted 5 blogs. I'm like, I just told you about this 15 minutes ago. What could these 5 blogs possibly be about?
I was a pioneer.
And should you be like posting 5 blogs in 15 minutes? He was so excited. I just posted 5 blogs. I'm like, great. On what?
Have a purpose is your point here.
Exactly.
Have a purpose. And then also what you were saying earlier about quality. And as you were saying it, for me, excellence came in mind of having a strive or a goal to what excellence looks like. And I love that as a conversation for a team that they can have right now with their leaders. You mentioned what is good look like for us. It's like, what is good? What is excellence? What is something really nicely done that adds value and meaning look like? And then let's work towards that. Right? I think these are important conversations for people to have because the skepticism is there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned trust. What I see is there's a lack of trust. People relate to these technologies in a different way. Some trust it more than others. Should you not? That's a different conversation. The fact is that we are struggling to find our level of trust of how to use these technology. And so these are the dynamics that are impacting the human relationships of you as a teammate or you as my leader that goes in and writes 5 blogs and I'm resisting it, right? Mm-hmm. So these are the dynamics that we would love to help leaders and teams move past.
Yeah. And I think the seed of what your questions and your observations are for how should leaders, how should individuals and teams be looking at these tools? And really, and I say this over and over again, you need to go back to fundamentals. What is your strategy for the business? What are the tactics and tools you're going to be leveraging to support that strategy? And that's where the AI conversation comes in. Where if you go, hey, look at my strategy is to get more individual meetings between account reps and those who are attending in-person events. Can AI support that? Maybe from just cleaning up databases or something like that, but most likely it's not good. It cannot help with the interaction itself, except for maybe doing some prep work. And so you start to see, okay, research. Here is where, the tool can actually add value. And then the part that I always love to talk about is how most people, I'll do marketing specifically. People in marketing or business, they don't like to eat their vegetables from an organizational standpoint. And by eating their vegetables means, what's your standing operating procedures? Do you have documented workflows? How do you get from point A to point B when you're accomplishing anything? And if you don't have those in place, you can't take a look at, well, what are our processes? What are our workflows? And how is AI going to augment those? You can't, because inherently our processes are, well, Joe hands it off to Susie, and then Susie does something. We're not totally sure what. And then it goes to Bob, and then Bob puts it in this one thing, and then all the leaders look at it and they add comments, and it goes back to Bob. And then Bob does something with some agency. I'm not totally sure. And then the agency comes back, and then boom, there it is. 6 weeks later. How do you get AI involved in that? Nobody knows, because the whole thing is opaque. And so one of the biggest disruptive elements that people are seeing when people talk about it, oh, this is disruptive, it's because it's shining a light on the fact that there aren't any processes in place. So you don't know how to articulate how AI can add value. You don't know what AI's impact is because you don't know how to measure it, because you don't know those processes in place. So you can't articulate what time savings it's going to have. So it's even hard for some people to even make the argument to get the tool to begin with. So you're getting into a situation where people are realizing that they're now, on the hook for explaining what they do and how they do it, and the process which they get there, and how AI can augment it, and then how they can measure the impact of AI, so that they're the people that they report to can then report up and say, hey, look, if we do X, Y with this tool, we're going to be able to save this much in efficiency. And then the board can rule on whether or not they're going to hire 10,000 more people, or they're going to let 10,000 more people go. And that's the really scary part, where you have imperfect information, because from the bottoms up and tops down, there's a fundamental disconnect with regards to how these tools are used and what impact they have and what they're for. And so, but decisions still have to be made based on pressure, and that pressure comes from different places. And so the most disruptive element here is the uncertainty. Yep. We're talking about that 2030 uncertainty. Where are we going to be in 2030? Do big companies feel like we can do the same amount of work with half the employees? Or are they going to have a colossal, which this is my only prediction, is somewhere in some way, shape, or form, there's going to be a realization that they can't do more with less, that they can do better with the same. And it'll fall somewhere around there. So AI, in my opinion, shouldn't be taking someone's job, but someone who doesn't know how to use AI to do their job, that's where they should be concerned.
Yeah.
Because it's a tool. It's like not using the internet, or not using spell check.
Or a smartphone.
Or a smartphone, exactly. You'll need to use it. And I think everyone's agreed to that. I don't think anyone who's listening to this thinks that, well, AI is just some fad. I don't think anyone thinks that. But I think the thing that they may be wanting from this show when they're listening to this conversation, well, what do I do to change my ability to be able to use AI? How do I communicate that I know how to use it? How do I dig into the pieces? And I think that's where the curiosity takes place. There are no manuals. There's no one who's going to say, this is how you need to use AI for your job. That's the problem. In 5 years from now, 2030, I think there's going to be manuals. I think there's going to be standard operating procedures for how AI is implemented, how you leverage it, just like you're using, these databases, CRMs, or your accounting system, or whatever that is. There'll be nice onboarding documents. And I think they'll be in 2030. That's my prediction. There'll be onboarding documents for AI tools in 2030. I think that's a solid one. But now there's not. So you have to go out and you have to figure it out. So those listening to this wondering, what do I do next? You have to go out and figure out, how is AI going to be added to what you do, and how are you also then going to communicate how you're using AI? I don't feel, because a lot of people feel like they're cheating. They feel like they used AI, they're cheating. You are not. So you have to get over that feeling. It is now going to be something like your word processor. You have to integrate it into your daily work. It doesn't have to be every moment of every day. It just has to be part of your workflow.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I do want to give people that are not as on board with the new hype of AI, there is still a part that is very important that you can play, which is, thanks to you, Yadin, we uncovered today, which is keep your standards high.
Yes.
Keep the quality high. Know your workflows. You don't have to digitize them. You can take an analog approach to them. It's okay.
That totally works.
But know your workflows, and ethical.
Oh,
and aware of biases.
Yes.
So in your data. So keep the quality of your data and the knowledge of your workflows and a high standard, I think. if nothing else, they can play that part.
I think that is my preferred way to look at it. And it's not do more faster. Because I literally been in, the room with a leader who said, great, there's this cool new tool. We can spit out for every, white paper we do. Now we're going to spit out, a podcast for it. We're going to spit out a blog and all this other stuff. Like, great, but not great, because all you're doing is just creating more stuff that legal's going to have to review anyways. And it's going to take 1 billion years for them to review all this stuff. And you're just going to flood them with things, and they're going to get really frustrated with you. So let's focus on quality. How about that white paper that we made? How about we focus on making that white paper better? And if we are going to make something like a podcast, let's think about making a great podcast, not just let's spit out an AI version of a podcast and shove it onto a channel just because we can. Because who is that for? And what is that for? Yeah. The reason we're talking like 3 humans together is because the people who are listening to this right now find value in 3 humans talking together, figuring out what's next. We're not trying to predict the next word. We're going to try and predict the next step in your career, in the culture, in your business, because we actually have empathy. We're actually curious, and we're not just trying to say, hey, there's a 97.8% chance that this is the next word that we should say.
Beautiful. Yeah. I really like the fact that you are sort of exposing you're pulling the covers off of, hey, you don't have any processes here, right? But also in our conversations that we've been having with guests and teams, it's also exposing the fact that maybe they don't have psychological safety. Maybe they don't have trust of the humans among one another.
Yep.
So not only is it there's many layers, right? There's the tasks, the processes of the day-to-day, but also the relational layer.
Yes. And that's something that you predicted, like who's going to address the relationship layer of humans? And one of I think the key component of that insight, and I've had conversations with people around this, is that someone asks, well, what do you do? And if you really, really break it down, it's not what your LinkedIn profile says. It's not what your resume says. Like, if you really, really spend time thinking about it, most of your day is spent relating with other humans, empathizing with them, asking them, how was their day? Oh my goodness, your kid was sick. Are they better? What do you think about this? And making them, in many cases, people try and shortcut this, making them feel like they're safe to express their creativity, their curiosity to do. Because once you create that safe space for them, then you get just amazing things that you can now do with them. Building trust with individuals is one of the most important things that we do as leaders, as members of teams, people within companies. And that layer is, I just stretching my mind trying to figure out how AI can even begin to touch that part of what we do, which is the most important piece. You want someone to make a purchasing decision to close a 7-figure deal, close an 8-figure deal. AI is not going to build that relationship with your customer to close that deal. They're just not. And when will they? I can't even imagine when that would happen.
Never.
We might not be around.
In some way, shape, or form, that will happen at some point in the super future. But right now, it's like, no, I want another human who I know I can depend on and rely on. I want to know that company, the people who are in that company, are going to have my best interest at heart for the next 10 years for me to make a purchasing decision of that magnitude. And that's where the revenue and the attention and the core of what we do in business lays. We want people to trust us so that they transfer value from their bank account, strategic IP, whatever that is, to our entity, whether it's a partnership, whether that's a purchase of a product. That piece is the holy grail of everything that we do.
Yep.
Is we build trust between individuals or between brands. But the humans are what lie behind those brands, not marketing. If you want to make C2C, like customer, consumer purchasing decisions, yes, AI is very much involved in them. That's, AI can help people buy a slice of bread or a pair of shoes or those types of things. But I think what we're talking about right now, the real disruption, the real big moves are in B2B and those types of relationships. You can augment the efforts to reach that trust using tools, but that's just like any other
pretty much
tool.
It, yeah.
That's any other tool.
Yadin, thank you so much for this conversation. Where can our listeners find out more about you? How can they reach you? Are you even reachable?
Oh yeah, well, if you're walking around San Francisco, just wave and I'll see you. No,
I see Yadin in San Francisco.
you can find me. You can find me on LinkedIn. So it's LinkedIn.com/Porter De León. It's a nice URL. Feel free to hit me up there. Send me a DM, connect with me, and you can see some of my posts there. And some of the other things that I'm doing. Feel free to reach out.
Wonderful.
Great. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Yadin.
Thank you so much.
It was great being on the show. Thank you so much.
So one thing that really stuck with me is Yadin's comment that AI effectively forces us to eat our vegetables. I mean, it shines a light on the fact that many teams don't actually have documented processes or workflows in place, and they also don't have documented their team norms or agreements for how they'll collaborate and communicate during times of peak pressure. It's so easy to get caught up in the speed of this rocket ship, but as Yadin asked, who's looking after the relational layer? Now, as organizations begin to tinker with AI workflows and shifting job roles, we have to remember that the critical core of our work is empathizing, building trust, and maintaining high relational and behavior standards that reduce the friction in the system so that we can have the highest impact possible on the business. Now, if you're wondering what you can do now to get there or how to structure your team to simply survive this shift, you are in luck. In our next episode, we're dipping into a conversation about organizational design with one of our favorite guests from season 1, Jardina London. Until then, please hit the subscribe button and share this episode with a colleague. And if you have a sticky team situation you'd like us to unpack on a future episode, reach out to us at teamlabatwork.com. We'd love to hear from you.